Right, well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our second back in person Cabinet meeting here on the 15th of June 2021 at 2 p.m. back in the Council Chamber at South Kesteven House. Well, obviously, yesterday we heard the announcements from the Prime Minister. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our second back in person. I think we're back to normal now. So obviously yesterday we heard from the Prime Minister in relation to the latest COVID announcements. And sadly, of course, it continues to be challenging for those in hospitality and leisure. I know some people will be disappointed with the announcement that we haven't had our Freedom Day. And I know when it does come, we'll all be looking forward to that. But in the interim, of course, Invest SK and the council are there to support wherever they can, any businesses or residents, and our community hub continues at the council to support those in need. So if anybody does need any support on either a business case or on a personal case, then please don't hesitate to contact us as a council, because we are, as they say, here to help. Well, on today's Cabinet agenda, we do have a real mix of items, such as the Housing Service Fire Safety Management Plan, which is being brought by the Cabinet Member for Housing and Property. There is an updated agenda item for that, and I understand we've also got an extract from the Rural Overview and Communities Scrutiny Committee as well. We'll be looking at the key and non-key decisions, along with a couple of other items in relation to matters in Stamford, relating to a Section 106 agreement and a proposed sale of land. So without further ado, we shall move forwards on the agenda, and we'll firstly move on to apologies for absence, and I do not believe there are any, as we are all present. It's quite nice to see so many people here as well for the first time as well. Therefore, moving on to disclosure of interest, if any, as I've always said, if you have interests at any point during the meeting, then please do not hesitate to raise those, just so we've got those on record. And of course, we do have your standing register of interests on our website as well. So moving on to agenda item number 3, and we've got the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of May 2021. And I'll move to Councillor Trollope-Bellew first, please.
Thank you. I'd appreciate it if an amendment could be included. Item number 92, I declared interest as we rent properties out and it could affect us in the future, and I abstained from the vote.
Thank you for that, Councillor Trollope-Bellew, and that will be noted. Do we have any other amendments or comments on the minutes of the Cabinet meeting on the 18th of May? No? Then I'm happy to propose, if I could have a seconder, please. Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Stokes. And if you could all indicate those in favour, please, of the minutes with the amendment. Lovely. Thank you. Appreciating that a few people can't vote because they weren't present for the last meeting. Therefore, we'll move on to items for Cabinet decision, which are key. And the first agenda item today is the adoption of a Housing Service Fire Safety Management Plan 2021 to 2024. Well, obviously, the corporate plan makes clear the council's ambitions to ensure housing that meets the needs of residents of the district. And as a social landlord, the council remains committed to the health, safety and well-being of tenants and their households. I know this piece of work has been undergone quite a bit of work, particularly by the Cabinet Member and also the Overview and Scrutiny Committees alongside our officers. So I'll hand over to Councillor Reid, please, to present this report.
Thank you very much, Leader. Just to endorse that under item 9, there is a hard copy of the quality and safeguarding implications. However, it needs to be expanded, and that's why you have the extract from Rural and Communities from the 29th of April, which goes a long way to explaining it. The council remains committed, as you have aforementioned, to the health, safety and well-being of people and that live in our properties that we are as a social landlord. We now continue to develop a range of policies and procedures to ensure we meet the statutory and regulatory standards. And what it does is that they draft fire safety management plan outlines our arrangements for fire safety. It provides clear guidance to ensure we reduce the risks to people who live in our properties and that our properties are protected. A key action in terms of the plan is the delivery of the fire risk assessments. 64 fire risk assessments out of the programmed 173 have been completed as at the 28th of May, and I did actually give an update informally this morning that supersedes that. More importantly, we are on target to complete all the remaining FRAs due by the end of June 2021. Consultation has been undertaken with all the internal stakeholders and, most importantly, Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue Service. The views of the rural OSC and community were sought on the 29th of April, as aforementioned, and due to the government's ongoing reform of building and fire safety, the fire safety management plan will be under constant review to ensure that we remain compliant with the changes in statutory or regulatory requirements or best practice recommendations made. It's proposed that the policy document is vigorously reviewed every 12 months with significant changes brought back to Cabinet for approval. Our ongoing performance will be reported to OSC for ongoing assurance and member oversight. And we do, of course, Leader, as you well know, and the Chief Executive knows as well, we do bring this up under our housing safety compliance meetings that we now hold on a fortnightly basis. There is the introduction. I'd be pleased to take debate from members and to ask any questions that arise there from it, along with my Housing Director, Andrew Cotton, who is sitting behind me. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Apologies for those tuning in at home. We do have some technical difficulties at the present time with the system. I'll go to Councillor Robbins first, please.
Thank you, Leader. I just had a few questions for you, and hopefully with amendments to the fire service, fire safety management plan. This is a well-written, well-researched report, and it really is of good quality, I must say. And thank you to everybody who was behind the constructing of this report. If I go to 3.1 on page 15, where it says the fire risk assessment, I think I would like the report to really read that we are more proactive than reactive by instigating some sort of education program where residents know the risks of fire rather than what happens when a fire is alight. I'll use for an example lithium-ion batteries that get warm and cause fire. So if that could be something in there alluding to the education of that to prevent rather than cure. 18.0 on page 25. Surrounding the lifts. Now, lifts, as people know here, are different for a variety of reasons, whether it's heights of buildings, types of buildings, types of construction of the lift, whether it's electric, hydraulic or other. I just wondered if this report could take into consideration the personnel that attend the fires and their knowledge of every lift available is very, very difficult. So is there any chance of or any probability of including in this report detailed instructions of how to use individual lifts in the properties? On page 33, item 29.0, absolutely right about the testing and servicing intervals for fire equipment, so smoke detectors, carbon monoxide alarms and that sort of thing. One thing this is missing, maybe if we can have a log of the change of dates for the installed smoke detectors, that would then possibly be a twofold advantage where it's logged and a desktop survey could be done as to a replacement program for batteries and the like to ensure that the smoke detectors are working. And finally, on page 35, where it mentions premise information boxes or girder boxes, as they're called, the complex developments like Knowlton Court, for example, could really benefit from girder boxes, and for what for our colleagues amongst us, the girder boxes are a tough, secure box, and it includes things like maps of the outline of the building, what's in it, what's not, the construction, and really keys for opening key parts of the building. I'm just wondering if that could be looked into for the more complex layouts that we have, and also certainly within our SK house and the offices here, maybe including girder boxes for ease of use. And I think, as I say, I really appreciate this report, and thank you to everybody who was behind it. And that's I'll hand you back to Councillor Reid.
Councillor Reid, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. I will answer these in a chronological fashion. However, 3.1, which is asking us to be reactive as well as preventable in our situations of assessment. I'm going to ask the director behind me, Andrew Cotton, to give his opinion on that, and then I'm going to respond with answers to lifts, smoke alarms, and to the gender boxes and on SK House. Thank you, Leader.
Mr. Cotton.
Thank you. Yes, so certainly prevention of fire, stopping the fire happening in the first place is, you're absolutely right, has got to be the key aim, rather than dealing with it when it's actually started. And I think it's probably the nature of a fire safety management plan that it's the emphasis within the document is on sort of reactive and controlling fire if and when it does start. I think that that reflects that some of the preventative work that goes on isn't adequately sort of detailed within the plan. So information within the tenant handbook and the housekeeping sort of inspections that happen, particularly at sheltered schemes, would be things I point to as sort of preventative, proactive work. I think it's, as has already been observed, it's very much a living document. And as good practice changes, as regulation changes, we will keep and continually improve the document and the plan and the information contained within. So I can give some assurance that there is preventative work going on, and I'm sure in future versions of the report we'll make that more clear and more explicit. So hopefully that addresses that concern. I believe Councillor Reid was going to come in with some of the other responses.
Yes, thank you very much. Lifts, to do with the criteria at entry of the information on lifts. As I speak, we are installing premises information boxes, and they will be done by the end of the FRA's update that we are currently undertaking. We are rather hopeful that it might be done by the end of June, so that's a positive hopefully on that one. Smoke alarms and indeed CO2 alarms where we have gas, we will include those in future schedules, and the gender boxes, there is a programme at present that's being undertaken, I've learned, and so they are actually happening, which is good news. However, I understand the criteria for SK House has been recently actioned, like today, thanks to the questions from my colleague, Nick Robbins. And there are the answers to the questions today. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Mason next, and then Councillor Dr. Peter Moseley.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to see that this is a living and evolving document, and thank you, Councillor Reid, for expanding the equality and safeguarding implications for my reassurance. So I'd just like to say that I'd be happy to second this. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. And Peter?
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thank you, Robert, for bringing this to us. I think it's vital that we have a good fire safety management plan in place. I just got one question. It says under the options that do nothing would mean that we go back to a no formally adopted fire safety management plan, but presumably we have been doing something with regards to fire safety management in our properties. And the other thing that you mentioned was that we've done about a third of them already. Do we know how long it will take to complete that task? Because obviously we don't know what the start date was. I appreciate that some good efforts have probably been made, but it'd be nice to know when all of our properties will have an audit in place. Thank you.
Okay, we are working through these and we are hoping to have the programme completed by the 30th of June. To actually tell you how many of them that we have done at the moment, we have now completed, the last update I had is that we'd actually completed 74 of the 173 that we've got. So we've got 99 to do, but that was last week's information for governance and audit. So the number will have gone up since then, but we are on route to get that done.
Brilliant. Do you have any further comments on this agenda item at all? No. So it has been proposed and seconded. So all those in favour, if you'd like, please like to indicate. Wonderful. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Therefore, moving on to items for cabinets which are non-key, and these items are for information. As there are no papers for agenda items number 5 and 6, we'll therefore move on to agenda item number 7. Which is the Cabinet Forward Plan for the period of the 7th of June to the 30th of June 2020. I think that should read 20. No, that is it 2021? Not 22.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, the forward plan is for a year, and we identify actions that are coming forward for the following year. So you will see that there's actions on the forward plan for December. Up to December, so you can have it for which of course are our considerations of some of our budgets and some of our key areas. So yeah, you do normally run a forward plan for a year.
Wonderful, thank you. Apologies for this, everyone. Do you have any comments on the forward plan at all? No. Then we're moving on to agenda items number 8. And I'd like to hand over to the Chief Executive to confirm whether or not we are moving to exempt session for these items, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Monitoring Officer is in the room, but I'm also unclear. We've got number 9 that doesn't look like it's on exempt papers, and number 10, which is definitely on exempt papers. So can the Monitoring Officer just confirm, please?
Thank you, Leader. I cannot see anything on the face of the papers that would suggest it needs to be an exempt session. So apologies that the agenda lists it as such. It seems to be an open paper which you can discuss and debate in the open part of the meeting.
So Chairman, if I can suggest then that item 9 of the agenda is actually considered, so you'll need to take a decision to take it out of exempt and bring it into public, and then number 10 continues to stay in the exempt items.
Okay, super. Thank you very much for that, and we'll get that amended in the next agenda so we don't have that mistake. So moving on to agenda item number 9, which is the distribution of monies received by the council under section 106 agreement and grant of new lease and building licence at Empingham Road playing fields. So the section 106 agreement in relation to the urban extension at Stamford West provided funds to enhance the facilities at the Empingham Road playing fields. So the local clubs and organisations, as you'll see in the report, were invited to bid towards these clubs. And the terms of the section 106 were tightly drawn, meaning that only partners already represented on the site, or that could be properly described as sports, were able to receive those funds, meaning that a number of bidders sadly did not meet the criteria. Successful parties have now been informed about their proposed allocation, but it has been stressed that this is entirely subject to Cabinet approval and they will need to adhere to the condition of the Section 106 agreement. In the case of the rugby club, it is expected that they will need to enter into a building licence, followed by a ground lease of the site for their proposed new clubhouse. And delegated powers have been requested to enter these legal agreements. I'll go to Councillor Trollope-Bellew first, please.
Leader, I'd just like to propose that agenda item 9 goes out of exempt.
I wasn't proposing to take a view because it doesn't need to be an exempt. So we're just going to continue.
No, but it's in exempt, so we've got to take it out, is what I understood from our monitoring officer.
Okay.
I'm happy to be wrong.
I would suggest that that's what you do, Leader. I know you've given your introduction to the report, but I would also just have it considered in the public part and make a decision to do that.
Are all members happy to consider this in public? Thank you. Agreed. Okay. So do we have any speakers on this agenda item at all then, please? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Leader. Just a quick question. What happens if the bidders cannot raise the remaining money?
Well, I suppose in certain ways, this is an allocation of funding, and obviously we'll be supporting any of the organisations that need additional funding through other bodies that might be available to support them. I know in terms of, and I've met quite a few of these organisations as well, some of the projects are very ambitious and sadly we can't fulfil the full requirement, but certainly in terms of the rugby club, the 228,000 allocation will be a substantial way forward for them to gain other funding from various sources of sports funding. Councillor Stokes, please.
Yeah, I mean, this seems pretty straightforward and agreeable, but there is just one question with regards to the Bridge Club. Do they actually use the building that the rugby club currently have? Because obviously, will the clubhouse kitchen already be integrated in the? Do we know? We probably don't know. I mean,
as far as I'm aware, and this is going off experience from a previous visit, the Bridge Club actually have their own building on that site. So it's just off, and it is quite a well-used building. Sadly, of course, because of COVID, not so much. But I know I've previously been before when they had a young tournament. And it was really interesting to see the engagement. Okay, if we've got no other speakers, then I'll propose recommendations 1 to 4. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. And all those in favour, please? Wonderful, that is unanimous. So now I'm going to propose that we move into executive session under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972. The press and public may be excluded from the meeting during any listed items of business on the grounds that if they were to be present, exempt information could be disclosed to them as defined in the relevant paragraphs of Schedule 12A of the Act. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Stokes. And all those in favour to move into closed session? Lovely, thank you very much. So for those people watching at home, we are now moving into closed session. This is the last agenda item, so we won't be moving back into public session. So thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you at a future Cabinet meeting.